there, everyone. I wanted to make a video to talk to you about the difference between interlanguage language acquisition and native-like language acquisition. Because in my personal experience, I've found a difference. Before I found dreamingspanish.com, I was utilizing a method of language acquisition called TPRS, Teaching Proficiency Through Reading and Storytelling. And TPRS is a great method, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with TPRS if you are looking for interlanguage language acquisition. However, I do think that TPRS could also be used for native-like language acquisition. So let me talk about the differences through my personal experience. So interlanguage is where you have your native language or perhaps a stronger language and the target language, the language that you're looking to acquire. And interlanguage is where the structure and the meaning and the culture of your native language or the stronger language that becomes associated with the target language that you're acquiring, they merge, and the stronger language or the native language provides the scaffolding, provides the structure for the language that you're acquiring. And this happens through connections that are made in the brain, connections to meaning, connections to usage of the language. So this is what was happening for me through my language acquisition with TPRS, is I was acquiring interlanguage, and interlanguage is unique to each person. Though native-like acquisition is also unique to each person, right? Because the way that we use that language is different for each person. However, with interlanguage, there is no one else who's going to speak, let's say, interlanguage Spanish or interlanguage Korean or German anywhere else in the world except for you. And while this does also happen with native-like or native language acquisition, it is not to the same degree, because the interlanguage has grown, has a scaffolding, has a structure that is largely based on your native language or a stronger language that's closely associated or linked to the target language that you're learning. So in my case, there were 3 languages that I acquired either more or from zero through TPRS and through interlanguage TPRS. And those languages are Spanish, German, and Korean. German, I already had 6 years of traditional methods through high school and university. And then Korean, I had a fair amount through living here in Korea for the last 6 years, as well as a year of studying I did online, and then some others studying here and there with Korean. And then Spanish was totally from zero, except for the Spanish that I had heard through, media and being around Spanish speakers and having a degree in music and singing in choirs and singing in Spanish, but it was essentially from zero. I did have maybe 1 semester or 2 semesters of Spanish way back in high school that I just only remembered, like, my name is Nathan and I like French fries. Those are like the only things that I had remembered from that. So you could argue there was some in my head, but that was also traditional methods. It wasn't language acquisition. So I started TPRS with Spanish, and it was interlanguage. I didn't know this at the time because I had no terminology. I had no idea what interlanguage was, and I had nothing to compare it to. I only had my traditional language learning experiences, and then TPRS as I was learning it or experiencing it as a student. And so TPRS, when I was acquiring it, when I was in a class, was using translation to make the meaning clear really quickly about what I was hearing. So that I could acquire the language faster and speak faster. And it was effective in getting me to speak faster. I mean, I was speaking in full sentences, I was speaking for long periods of time. I could speak for 20 minutes easily, retelling the story that we had learned in class. And, it felt really good because I was speaking and I knew what I was saying and I knew what I wanted to say. And I was thinking in Spanish words, but really it was interlanguage because the foundation, the connections that I was making, the connections were to English words. They were not to the meaning of those English words. I mean, eventually through the English words, it got to the meaning, right? But the links that I was making in my mind, in my brain, to the Spanish words and the Spanish things that I was saying was through the English words, which all of those English words, because I'm a native English speaker, they carry so much context and meaning and inference and many things that don't exist in Spanish, right? If I had a native acquisition of Spanish, a lot of the stuff that I'm carrying from English doesn't exist in Spanish. Or if it exists, it doesn't exist in the same way. And, but I didn't know this then because I had nothing to compare it to. I had no, I had nothing to compare it to other than my traditional language learning experience, which was very different from language acquisition through TPRS. Even if it was interlanguage and I didn't know it, it was great. And so then I taught Spanish with TPRS and I taught German and Korean as well. But the whole time, again, I was developing more and more interlanguage without knowing it because I was taking English translations. I was making the translations as true as I could to the culture and the language that I was making those translations for. I was translating in Spanish grammar, in German grammar, or in Korean grammar. So the English words would be mixed around to mold into that language that I was learning, whether it be Spanish, German, or Korean. Even when I'm doing that, when a native English person hears the English words, even used in a different context, that sounds strange because those words still have so much wrapped up in them in English because I'm an English native speaker. For someone who's not an English native speaker, it might not have had the same effect, but I can't know because I'm a native English speaker and that was my experience. So I did make progress quite rapidly in my understanding of what I was hearing and what I wanted to say. However, it was interlanguage. It was Korean or German or Spanish that was growing on a structure, on an English structure. And so even if I could sound relatively similar to how a native speaking person would utilize German or Korean or Spanish, I didn't have the association to the meaning of what I was saying out into the language. It was still wrapped up in English. And then a friend of mine introduced me to dreamingspanish.com. And I was able to learn about automatic language growth and the AUA school in Thailand, where they use a version of comprehensible input and language acquisition. And I started watching videos at dreamingspanish.com and started to acquire brand new words and structures and expressions. There were things that I was hearing and things that I was acquiring that had no connection to English whatsoever because there was no translation. There was no translation and there was no, what does this mean? Oh, it means this? Okay, good. Like it's literally just my mind, my unconscious mind, my brain trying to figure out what I'm hearing based on the pictures and the gestures and the rephrasing that I'm hearing in the video. So the pictures I'm seeing, the gestures I'm seeing, and then Pablo at dreamingspanish.com is saying things in different ways, rephrasing things so my brain can go, oh, that's what that means, roughly. But because there's no translation, because there's no saying this is what this means, my mind is always guessing, always wondering, Is that what that really means? And because I'm always wondering, I'm always guessing, my unconscious mind, which I can't consciously control, which I can't say, do this, right? That's my conscious mind. My unconscious mind that I can't control is always still looking and trying to understand and trying to guess because it thinks that I don't know. I don't know exactly what this means. So it's going to continue to try and figure out, what does this mean? What does this mean? And that is going to get me to native-like acquisition of the language. Well, not get, I mean, it has already gotten me areas of Spanish where, I know this word, or I know how to say these things, but I don't know exactly what they mean. I just know when they're used. I know the context around why it's used, but I can't tell you what it means in English. Absolutely not. And this is creating a separate realm of Spanish in my mind that has no association to English. This is what's going to allow me to have a native-like acquisition, provided I do things that lead to that, provided I eschew, provided I ignore, provided I stop trying to make a link to English, or any other language for that matter, to what I'm acquiring now in Spanish, and focus solely on the meaning, the message. And one of the best ways to make meaning clear is through drawing and showing pictures and showing videos that are showing exactly what well, not exactly, but showing what I'm talking about, because that's the meaning that's in our minds. Our pictures, experiences, feelings, smells, all of these things. And so we need to use those things as the anchor, as the connection, as the link to the words that we want to say. And that does take a fair amount of time, a fair amount of being silent, of not using those words before they become clear in our head. Because if we try to speak before that mental representation, before that image, before that picture, before that meaning is clear in our head, if we try to speak before that's clear, our unconscious mind, the part of our mind that we can't control, is going to grasp at the stronger structure, the stronger scaffolding, at the stronger meaning or language that's in our head. So for me, that's most likely going to be English. When I try to say something before it's clear enough in my mind, my brain is naturally going to move over to English to try and find a way to use these words, but using it with an inappropriate structure or context. And this is why I am now looking to speak as little as I can in Spanish or German, Korean, or any other language that I look to acquire in the future, until it just comes out without me thinking about, oh, this is what I want to say. So thinking the thing that I want to say, the meaning, and then there's a pause, there's a stop, there's a hesitancy about like, oh, how do I say that? That indicates to me this isn't strong enough. This mental representation, this imagery, this meaning in my mind, in the Spanish world or the German or Korean world, it's not strong enough yet. I need more input. And this same thing happens in my native language, in English. There are words, there are ways of talking, there's jargon, there's technical terms. There are things in my native language that I've never encountered before, words and ways of talking that I have never done myself or heard, right? So until I hear those things and until I understand what I'm hearing or reading, I can't use those words. I can't just be like, oh, here's a new word. I just spontaneously knew this out of nothing. No. I have to hear them sometimes only once as a native speaker. Sometimes I can hear something just one time as a native speaker and I can use it immediately. Other times, no. I have to hear something 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, maybe more in different contexts before I can use it in my own native language. So this makes sense for any other language that we're looking to acquire. It's going to take time, many times for us to hear it, maybe more times than we want, right? And yeah, I want to make another video to talk a bit more about why it is that it's a little bit harder for older kids like teenagers and adults to, follow this native like acquisition, because our societies and our world and things aren't really set up to allow us this time and these experiences as an adult like it is for children. But I'll talk about that in another video. Okay, so to wrap all of this up, there is interlanguage language acquisition, and there is native like or native equal language acquisition. And I now have an experience of both, and I can compare the two. And I hope that I was able to help you understand a little bit about the differences between the two so that you can make a choice. Which one do you want? Interlanguage, language acquisition, totally fine. You're going to see a little bit faster progress with your speaking. You'll likely have a kind of a dialect, or you can have an accent with either one of these, and accents are not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. No. We just want to be understood, right? So maybe you're in an environment where you have to learn the language or acquire the language faster to be able to speak it. Then maybe you want to go this route. If you have the luxury of time, and you don't need to be using the language right now, then you can follow this method more, and you can do a mixture of both, right? So if there's some things that you need to say right away because you're going to be in the country or something like that, then maybe you want to use an interlanguage language acquisition approach so that you can at least not be using grammar exercises and worksheets and things like this, right? You can do something that's a little bit more fun. But then the vast majority of your acquisition can be focused on over here. And most of that is going to be listening to input that you can understand. Listening to a speaker or speakers of the language in a way that you can understand, that's being made understandable, being made acquirable for you. All right, so let's see. This video's gone on long enough. I hope that it was helpful. Please let me know if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and click the subscribe button below and click the notification bell so that you can get notified when I upload new videos. And join our Patreon page. The link is in the description below. All right, thank you so much. See you next time. Bye.